Today we gather in spirit to remember those who were murdered in the Holocaust, during the Nazi persecutions, and in the genocides that followed in Cambodia, Rwanda, Bosnia, and Darfur. Amid the darkness of genocide, there have always been those who defied the regime, risking their own lives, homes, and communities. Survivors emphasise that any kindness, when surrounded by suffering, persecution, and victimisation, is powerful. The theme this year is Be the Light in the Darkness, which encourages everyone to reflect on these atrocities, but also the way in which individuals and communities resisted the darkness to be the light before, during, and after the genocides. Today, rapid technological developments and world events beyond our control can leave us feeling helpless and insignificant. The utterly unprecedented times through which we are currently living show the darker side of our world, but also the very best that humanity is capable of. We hope our event shows Be the Light in the Darkness as an affirmation and a call to action for everyone marking Holocaust Memorial Day to consider different kinds of darkness, but also the different ways of being in the light, which is more powerful when we work together with others.
Each year we bring the memorial candle to this event as a constant reminder of all the victims of the Holocaust and those who died in the genocides which followed in Cambodia, Rwanda, Bosnia and Darfur. And we would like to ask you to take a moment to reflect on what it represents. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us at our virtual Northumberland Holocaust Memorial Day event. My name is Gracie. I'm a member of Northumberland's Youth Cabinet and I will be hosting this afternoon's event. We will now watch a video which details the liberation of Bergen-Belsen concentration camp, which has been taken from the Holocaust Memorial Trust website. I will now read a short poem about the Holocaust. Holocaust by Barbara Sinek. We played, we laughed, we beloved. We were ripped from the arms of our parents and thrown into the fire. We were nothing more than children. We had a future. We were going to be lawyers, rabbis, wives, teachers, and mothers. We had dreams, and we had no hope. We were taken away in the dead of night, like cattle in cars, no air to breathe, smothering, crying, starving, dying, separated from the world to be no more. From the ashes hear our plea. This atrocity to mankind cannot happen again. Remember us, for we were the children whose dreams and lives were stolen away. We will now hear from Councillor Susan Dungworth.
This year we cannot be together on Holocaust Memorial Day to remember the victims of the Holocaust and other acts of genocide, or recognise the bravery and sacrifice of the people who tried to help. The pandemic we are living through has shown us the need for hope and support of friends and strangers alike if we are to survive. The theme of Holocaust Memorial Day this year is "Be the light in the darkness." And I want to share the words of two young people who are generations and continents apart to illustrate this. Anne Frank, aged 14, in her diary said, "In the long run, the sharpest weapon of all is a kind and gentle spirit. Human greatness doesn't lie in wealth or power, but in character and goodness. People are just people, and all people have their faults and shortcomings, but all of us are born with a basic goodness. As long as this exists, this sunshine and this cloudless sky, and as long as I can enjoy it, how can I be sad? He who has courage and faith will never perish in misery." And I would like to finish with the last 3 lines of The Hill We Climb. This is the poem by Amanda Gorman, the American and Youth Poet Laureate, that she read last week at the inauguration of President Joe Biden. "For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it." Thank you for listening to me.
We will now hear from Nisren Zara refugee who found safety in Northumberland, who will share her story with us.
My name is Nisrin Zarour. I'm from Syria. I left Syria with my husband and 2 children. In 2011, the war started and damaged everything we had. We moved to Jordan and lived there for 7 years in a refugee camp. Life in Jordan was very difficult. In 2019, the UK government took us to Northumberland. Life in the UK is very good. We have a house and my children in school. I'm studying English and want to go a job in social care.
We will now hear from Northumberland County Council leader, Councillor Glen Sanderson, who will read the poem Refugee Blues by W.H. Auden.
Say this city has 10 million souls. Some are living in mansions, some are living in holes. Yet there's no place for us, my dear. There's no place for us. Once we had a country and we thought it fair. Look in the atlas and you'll find it there. But we cannot go there now, my dear. We cannot go there now. In the village churchyard there grows an old yew. Every spring it blossoms anew. Old passports can't do that, my dear. Old passports can't do that. The consul banged the table and said, "If you've got no passport, you're officially dead." But we are still alive, my dear. We are still alive. Went to a committee. They offered me a chair, asked me politely to return next year. But where shall we go today, my dear? Where shall we go today? Came to a public meeting. The speaker got up and said, "If we let them in, they will steal our daily bread." He was talking of you and me, my dear. He was talking of you and me. I thought I heard the thunder rumbling in the sky. It was Hitler over Europe saying, "They must die." We were in his mind, my dear. We were in his mind. Saw a poodle in a jacket fastened with a pin. Saw a door opened and a cat let in. But they weren't German Jews, my dear. They weren't German Jews. Went down to the harbour and stood on the quay. Saw the fish swimming as if they were free. Only 10 feet away, my dear. Only 10 feet away. Walked through a wood. Saw the birds in the trees. They had no politicians. They sang at their ease. They weren't the human race, my dear. They weren't the human race. Dreamed I saw a building with 1,000 floors, 1,000 windows and 1,000 doors. Not one of them was ours, my dear. Not one of them was ours. Stood on a great plain in the falling snow. 10,000 soldiers marched to and fro. Looking for you and me, my dear. Looking for you and me.
Now we will welcome Rabbi Lipsey, who will perform a blessing in both Hebrew and English.
I'll now say the memorial prayer in English and then in Hebrew. Almighty God, full of mercy who dwells on high, provide a sure rest upon the wings of the divine presence, within the levels of the holy and the pure, whose countenance shines like the sky. The souls of the 6 million Jews who were murdered, slaughtered, burnt and exterminated for the sanctification of your name by the Nazi assassins and their collaborators. Let the Garden of Eden be their repose. May the Master of Mercy protect them forever in the protective shelter of his wings and bind their souls with the bond of life. Hashem is their heritage, and they shall rest peacefully where they fell. And let us say, Amen. Keil moli rachamim, shoichein b'amaroimim, hamitzei menuchen achoin al kanfei ashchina, b'malois kedoshim, utahoirim, kezoihar, horokia mazhirim, es nishmois, hashishim ribu Yehudim, shenehergu, v'shenishchutu, v'shenisrufu, v'shenisrufu al kiddush Hashem. Began Eden teimunu chasam, lochein bal rachamim, yastireim b'seisek nalfav le'olamim, v'yitzroer b'tzroer achayim es nishmoiseim, Hashem unachalasam, v'yanuchu v'shalom al mishkavam, v'noimar, Amen.
We invite you to light a candle and commit to remember those people who have lost their lives.
Thank you for taking part in our event today. Sadly, prejudice and hostility based on identity continues to hurt people and communities here in the UK and around the world. And there is a responsibility to shine a light on situations where people are persecuted and hold those responsible to account. Holocaust Memorial Day enables us to remember that it is everyone's responsibility to tackle prejudice, discrimination, and intolerance and work together for a safer, better future for everyone in a variety of ways and places at home, in public, and online. This year's theme asks all of us to recognise that the responsibility for genocide education and prevention does not lie only with survivors sharing their testimony. Their experiences hold lessons for all of us, and it is vital that we listen to their experiences and become witnesses for them. Thank you.
As a part of Holocaust Memorial Day, I would like to introduce How to Be Lucky. This 1-hour play explores what it's like to be a refugee. The play and the character of Anwar is based on real-life experiences of several refugees. Through the voice of Anwar, we learn what it's like to be a civilian trapped in a war zone, and the realities of living for years in refugee camps, struggling to get work to support your family, and finally passage to asylum in the UK. What does that feel like to be a stranger in a strange land? It is a thought-provoking and moving story.
If I close my eyes, sometimes I can go back. But sometimes something stops me. Maybe God knows something I should not see or remember from that day. But sometimes I can close my eyes and I am back standing in the middle of our beautiful courtyard. Just seconds before the war, when everything felt safe. Over there is my mother and father's house. This whole block of buildings was bought by my father for his 3 sons. I am Anwar, the middle one. Middle sons need something to make people notice them. They need to find their gift, so my mother says. Because the eldest will always be the father's favorite. And the youngest, the baby. Always the baby, no matter his age. My older brother is called Omar, and the younger one is Ahmed. What is my middle son gift then? I have thought hard about that over the years, and I am still not sure. My nickname is Mahzuz. I am told that when I was born, I was not crying for many minutes and was still. They thought I was not alive. I'm told that then when everybody started panicking and shouting, out of nowhere, I sprang into life and I started crying. My grandfather, when he heard this, he said, I am blessed and I am Mahzuz. This means lucky. And it might be that I am, despite everything, lucky. Or maybe it's not such a gift after all, being lucky. Am I lucky? Is it lucky that I am here today, still going? You can be the judge of that. Yes, you can decide. No matter. The courtyard. We are in the courtyard now. Let me show you around it. Omar, he lived there with his wife Noor and their beautiful twin girls, Sana and Amira. Now, Ahmed married too, but he hadn't any children when the war broke out. He lived over by the apartments by the main gate with his wife Fatima. They met at university where he was, despite being just a baby, a doctor of archaeology. And she, much cleverer than any of us, she taught literature and poetry. And over here, where you are now, was my house, where I lived with my wife Salma, my son Yusuf, and my little daughters Malach and Juri. And I would return home here every evening, especially in the springtime when the flowers were in blossom around the courtyard and the voices of the children careered with laughter around the walls. Sometimes I would stop outside the main gate and I would lean my back against the walls, the cool walls that held our whole family together, safe. And in these moments, I would smell the mix of jasmine flower and the bread baking. And in these moments, I would close my eyes and give God thanks for everything. On the day that changed everything, I was doing just that. I was listening. Then I heard a new noise. Alien. Not one of our courtyard. Then the first shell hit. Maybe a block away. We knew that the regime had been saying it would act. But what we know now, we could never have believed that. They were shelling the streets. Their streets. Our streets. These peaceful streets. The sound was overwhelming because I could not piece that noise into this place. It did not fit. And then another went through the air and another shell closer, maybe 50 meters away. It struck 2 cars and the whole front of a shop along our street. I was looking in that direction. I cannot say I saw the shell, but I saw the 2 cars flip like a child flips toys. And then, without me maybe taking one further breath, the shell that struck our building, it threw me out into the street and changed everything in a second of unimaginable chaos. After the first shells, the first day of the attack, there was about 1 week in between that and the next government attack. And those days were surreal. We had seen images of war before on TV. We had watched the TV during the war in Iraq. And though Iraq is so close, it felt like 1,000,000 miles away too. Whole inner city districts torn apart in Baghdad and Basra. All those pictures of collapsed buildings. And yet here we were, in the same ruined streets. But it did not make sense because this was here. This was our home. These were our lives. In fact, even after all these years, I still cannot believe it has happened to us. So for the children, it was okay. Yes, they were scared at first after the first explosions and all the rubble, yes. But we were lucky though, because nobody in our family got hurt in that first blast. It was just buildings. But Ahmed and Fatima's apartment took the main brunt of the missile, and it was just gone. So weird. Just gone. Next to them was our house, and we lost the walls and windows on the right-hand side. But Baba and Mama's house was untouched, and Omar and Noor's not so affected. So me, my wife Salma, and my 3 kids, we moved into Mama's house that night. And Ahmed and his wife Fatima, they moved in with Omar and his family. So the children, I was going to tell you about the children. The children were okay because we told them that this was a mistake, that they were safe and it will not happen again. We wanted to believe that too, but of course we could not be sure. In fact, in our hearts, we suspected the worst. We knew, you see, that young people in our area, young men mainly, had been arrested recently. And we feared for them and discussed them at night in the courtyard, long after the children had been settled in their beds.
I heard from my friend in my department at work that they took her brother. Her family had no idea to where at first, but they found out. He was released and told them that the army and the police were arresting and holding anyone who was against the regime in these huge aeroplane sheds at the airport and were being beaten and torturing them.
That is Fatima you hear there, the literature teacher, my younger brother's wife.
For what? What do they think they will have to tell them?
This is Omar, my older brother.
For anything. For nothing. It seems that they just think that anyone who is old enough and who isn't in the army must be against the regime, and that they just rounding them up with no warning now.
And so it was. I mean, we knew that things had started to get worse, the conflict with the government. But for them to then start shelling the homes of their own people, well, we discussed it each night, all that week, about whether we should go. Live here, you know. But go where? This was our home. These were our lives. Can you imagine having that thought? You have a good home, you have a good job, your family is happy and healthy, and you decide to what? Just leave? How could you might ask? This was me too. I sided with Baba. Everybody else wanted to go to the countryside, to the village where Mama came from. They said, if we are there, then we are safe. And if things settle down in the city, we come back. And if not, then we are safe in the countryside. But I said no, that we should stay. You see, I did not think that the government would stoop so low again, and that things had reached their worst point already, and it would just get better again from here. And Baba agreed. So we stayed. 2 days later, while I was away working, another mortar attack brought down our entire building. And it killed Mama and my niece, Amira, one of the 5-year-old twins. They were out in the courtyard, in the open. They were dying blood on a spring morning. They died straight away, we think. But everybody else who was home that day, Noor, Salma, Baba, all the other kids, they were buried under the rubble of what? Only 1 week ago was the most beautiful and the safest and most colorful place in the world. They could have been in the countryside. They should have been in the countryside. But I was the one who told them no.